the Blue Hole in Dahab, Egypt. From above, it's a stunning, deep blue jewel set in a shallow turquoise reef. But beneath the surface, it's a deadly trap. Locals call it the Diver's Cemetery. On April 28, 2000, Yuri Lipsky, a 22-year-old Russian diving instructor, arrived. He brought a camera to document his achievement, breaking his personal depth record with a dangerous bounce dive. Tarak Omar, a more experienced technical diver, tried to talk him out of it. Tarak warned that Yuri's gear was insufficient, but Yuri ignored him. He was an instructor. He thought he knew what he was doing. At 5 p.m., he prepared his camera. Camera audio clicks on. The date and timestamp appears. The sun was still shining. He sinks into the blue water. For the first 2 minutes, everything looked normal. He drifts past the warning sign for the arch at 180 feet and continues down into the darkness below. After 4.5 minutes, his light begins to fade. By the 5-minute mark, darkness had surrounded him completely. At 5 minutes and 37 seconds, Yuri stops to check. The first alarm beep is heard. A sloping, sandy bottom appears, but Yuri is still sinking. A moment later, he checks again. 301 feet. This is an extremely dangerous depth. Yuri tries to inflate his BCD, buoyancy compensator, but it doesn't work. He begins to realize he is in serious trouble. His movements become frantic. At this depth, nitrogen narcosis completely clouds his judgment. His ability to make rational decisions was gone. Finally, he drops the camera to the bottom, hoping to free both hands. The camera lies motionless. His breathing grows louder, then stops. Only the sound of the alarm remains. Hoi 3. QQ. A week later, Tarak Omar, the man who tried to warn Yuri, descended to recover his body, along with the camera. Surprisingly, the camera was intact. The footage preserved the last 7 minutes of Yuri's life, showing his worst nightmare as he sank to his death. On February 6, 2014, 5 Finnish cave divers traveled to a small, secluded valley in northern Norway. They were experienced friends, looking forward to a long weekend expedition into the Plura Cave system. The caves in Nordland are spectacular underground natural phenomena. The Plura Cave is 2.2 miles long, but only half has been explored. The group of friends planned to start at a deep pool, travel underground, and emerge in a dry cave called Steinugolflaget. The lowest point of the dive measured about 433 feet below the surface level. The divers planned to go in 2 teams. The operation began at a pool near the Jord Brew farm. The ice was thick, almost half a meter. The divers had to use a chainsaw to cut an opening. The challenges were extreme. The water temperature was below freezing at -3 degrees Celsius. Each diver carried equipment weighing approximately 132 pounds. Patrick and Jari Huatanen entered the water and began their descent. They had been to this cave before. Roughly 1 hour into the dive, they reached the maximum depth of about 433 feet. On their way back up, they had to set aside 2 hours for decompression. During the ascent, Patrick realized that something was wrong. Jari had gotten stuck in a narrow passage. He was trapped in the most constricted part of the route. It is one of the worst things that can happen to a cave diver. At great depths, stress increases rapidly. Carbon dioxide is the most insidious danger a diver faces. It kills. At that moment, Patrick checked his dive computer. It had shown roughly 120 minutes of required decompression time. Suddenly, it jumped to 400 minutes. His breathing was rapid. His heart rate was high. Regardless of decompression requirements, Patrick could not stay in the water any longer. He had already been submerged for 7 hours. On his way up, Patrick started thinking about the second team. He had already swum past Jari Huatinen's dead body, blocking the passage, but he had no way to warn the others. Patrick made it to the surface around 9 p.m. Exhausted, disoriented, and freezing, he pulled himself out of the icy water and reached the dry cave alone. The last diver to surface was Kai. Before then, Jari Lipsky had seen his dead friend Jari Huatinen stuck in the narrow passage. Jari Lipsky panicked at the sight. He tried switching between his equipment to find stability. Kai made an attempt to calm his friend down. He tried to help, but could not save him. And in a few moments, Jari Lipsky died. Then Kai found Vasa struggling with the dead Jari Huatinen's body that was blocking the passage. At that point, Kai was faced with an unfortunate decision. He had to either save his friend or save himself. But seeing that Vasa was unlikely to survive, and he was already running out of bailout gas, Kai forced himself to turn around. On his way out, he thought all his friends were dead in the dark depths behind him. Around 1:30 a.m., he finally surfaced through the opening in the ice. He had survived a nightmare dive that lasted 12 hours. Fortunately for Vesa, he made it through, but Jari Huatinan and Jari Usaki were dead. On Saturday, October 15, 2016, 3 experienced cave divers arrived at Eagle's Nest in west central Florida. The site is a remote sinkhole in Chassahowitzka Wildlife Management Area. From the shore, it looks like an ordinary pond. Beneath the surface, it is shaped like a sink with a long, rocky drain. The passages descend into underwater caves, reaching 300 feet in depth. Chris Rittenmeyer and Patrick Peacock were highly trained technical divers. Both men were certified in full cave diving, trimix, and closed-circuit rebreathers. They had years of ocean and cave diving experience. Their friend, Justin Blakely, remained in the shallow section to explore. The day before, on October 14th, Chris and Patrick had prepared the cave. They staged decompression gases and bailout bottles along their planned route in case of equipment failure. For divers using closed-circuit rebreathers, the normal procedure is to stay on the rebreather for the entire dive, including decompression. The staged gases are backups. Around 2 p.m., Chris and Patrick entered the water and began their descent. The plan was for them to check in with Justin at 3 p.m. during their decompression stops. That way, he would know they were okay. But they never showed up at the checkpoint. Justin returned to the meeting point every 30 minutes, but there was no sign of his friends. By 6 p.m., he had notified the police. Search teams entered the cave that night. The first team checked the upstream passage based on what the support diver thought was their plan. They searched thoroughly, but found nothing. Each diver was equipped with a closed-circuit rebreather, 2 side-mounted 9.5 cubic foot cylinders, a safety bottle, and a scooter. They also towed a third scooter as backup. The second search team entered at 3:45 a.m. to continue the downstream search. They immediately found both bodies on the exit side of an area called the Pit. On Monday, October 17th, a gear recovery squad searched for equipment left in the cave. They found 2 scooters, Patrick's rebreather, and an emergency cylinder at the end of the guideline outside a restriction. Chris Rittenmeyer and Patrick Peacock were highly trained technical divers. Both men were certified in full cave diving, trimix, and closed-circuit rebreathers. What actually occurred remains unknown. They did everything right. They had proper training. They had quality equipment. They set up the cave. They had all the correct emergency and safety gases. They had surface support. But as Joe Satelli described the incident, sometimes bad things happen to good people for no apparent reason. Chris Rittenmeyer and Patrick Peacock died at 260 feet. On February 14, 2014, 7 Japanese women set out for a diving trip near Nusa Lembongan, a small island just east of Bali. 2 of them were diving instructors. The other 5 were tourists. All 7 were experienced divers. They were not beginners. Nusa Lembongan is known for its stunning underwater beauty, its colorful coral reefs, and crystal clear water. But the area is also known for something else: strong, unpredictable ocean currents. Around 1 p.m., the women began their final dive of the day. The weather looked good when they entered the water. Their boat captain, Agugustinas Bradakusuma, followed them on the surface for about 20 minutes. Then, suddenly, a storm hit. The water became cloudy and choppy. Large waves formed quickly. The captain moved his boat to where the divers were expected to surface, but they never appeared. Kusuma searched the area for about an hour before he departed to buy fuel. When he returned, the divers were gone. At 3 p.m., he finally called the police. The 7 women had been swept away by powerful currents. They struggled to remain together in the open ocean. On the first day, they had no fresh water. The sun burned their exposed skin. Dehydration set in quickly. Salt surrounded them, but drinking it would kill them faster. On the second day, heavy rain came. They opened their mouths and drank rainwater, which kept them alive. By the third day, Sunday, they were barely holding on, clinging to a coral reef. On Monday morning, local fishermen spotted 4 of the women. The 5th woman was picked up by a helicopter. All 5 women were rushed to hospitals. Against all odds, they had survived 3 days. On Tuesday, the body of Ritsuko Miyata was found floating. She was almost unrecognizable. 1 month later, the body of Shoko Takahashi was found washed ashore, 250 miles away. The boat captain, Agustinus Kusuma, was arrested and charged with negligence causing death. Prosecutors argued that he abandoned his responsibility to go buy fuel. 2 women died, 5 survived. At a press conference after their rescue, the 5 survivors bowed and apologized for causing trouble and requiring rescue efforts.